you ever wondered why people are so passionate about their iPhones? Some people might not even have a good answer for you outside of the generic responses. Things like, it's just the best phone, or it has the best ecosystem, without fully understanding what it is about the ecosystem that makes it so great, or how to take advantage of all its capabilities.
Apple, iPhone 14 generations, Apple will roll out its newest iPhone.
A lot of things about Apple that I really like.
The iPhone.
If you're a fan of sports or music, then you've probably heard on many occasions the GOAT debate, or the greatest of all time. In basketball, it's Jordan or LeBron. In rap, it's Kendrick, Drake, or even Cole. And these conversations have slowly evolved to include tech companies, Apple or Samsung, iOS or Android. And even though I'm Team Apple, I believe competition is healthy. You see, Apple has crafted an ecosystem that goes far beyond what meets the eye. It's more than just a phone or a set of AirPods. It's a gateway to a digital universe designed to encourage brand loyalty and customer retention.
Huge Apple store opening up. The famed Grand Central Travel,
Which is the largest market cap company in the world with over $2.2 trillion.
$274.5 billion.
But what sets it apart? What's hidden within the magic of this ecosystem that keeps users hooked and competitors on their toes? Well, let's try and find out. As technology continues to advance and evolve, so does the ecosystem of most tech companies. And Apple's one of the companies that consistently lead the charge. They have a ton of devices. The iPhone, of course, the Apple Watch, the iPad, the Mac, the Apple TV, the AirPods, and they're always coming out with newer versions of these devices that offer improvements over their predecessors. On top of that, Apple is trying to grow the ecosystem by adding the occasional new device. Back in 2019, if you remember, we got the HomePod Mini. In 2022, we got the Apple Watch Ultra. And this year, we got a new first generation product for the first time in quite a while with the Apple Vision Pro. And with many other new devices rumored to come over the following years, from a device lineup standpoint, it seems as though Apple is committed to its existing devices as well as creating new categories for devices to come. But what's at the center of all these devices that tie them all together? If you guessed the iPhone, then you guessed correctly. The iPhone acts as the center hub, and all these other devices are the ecosystem builders. Many years ago, Apple deployed this multi-pronged strategy in the form of a Trojan horse, if you will, where the goal was to get the iPhone into as many users' hands as possible, while in the background building up their device lineup so that when the time came for you to, branch out, you'd be more susceptible or likely to choose their products again and again. Then the other prong of this strategy is in the form of services that revolve around these products. If you're an established company that, wishes to continue to grow, which, let's be honest, Apple is a publicly traded company with an obligation to boost profits to their shareholders, then there's only a few different ways to do that. Come out with new products, which, we already touched on, increase the number of people that are buying and using your existing products, and then lastly, by offering add-on services. And we've seen a lot of growth in this category over the last few years. Of course, for the longest time, they've had their iCloud storage plan, which has recently been updated with multiple different storage plans at varying prices, but along the way, we've seen new subscriptions by Apple make their way to the market. And those come in the form of, news, fitness, music, and even TV, which, by the way, has some pretty banger shows if you haven't had a chance to check them out yourself. But the subscription plan that seems to be the most popular for the majority of Apple users these days is the one that wraps all these into a single plan with the introduction of Apple One a few years ago. This not only allows yourself to enjoy the benefits of each subscription, but also share them across devices and even with other members of your household if you choose to. This is just one of many examples where, we see the ecosystem evolving in recent years and will more than likely continue to do so. I wouldn't be surprised to see more services launched and added under the same umbrella in the near future. This multi-pronged deployment that I mentioned earlier doesn't work unless these products are good. In this day and age, the majority of tech companies have a large lineup of products, but what really makes this ecosystem stand out is the continuity and how effortlessly these products work together, almost giving the illusion of magic at times. And we've all seen these things over the years, things like being able to pick up a message or a web browsing session from your phone right on your MacBook like they're one big device. AirDrop from your iPad to computer or phone for easy photo or document sharing. Screen mirroring from one device to the other, giving you endless possibilities, and the list goes on and on. But with all these great features that we've seen Apple implement over the years, they're still adding new ones and extending existing ones to a wider range of devices. A more recent example that comes to mind when thinking about this is with the continuity camera, which allows you to use your iPhone as the webcam for your Mac computer. And built on the back of this feature, we now see it available to use on the Apple TV in the same way. But none of this is possible without the innovative software. All of these services and products are designed to be as good as possible, and most of the time they do hit the mark. But is that enough to keep you in the ecosystem? For example, if each year they came out with the same old iPhone and had the same old processor with the same software, would that be enough for you to stick with Apple? No, probably not, right? You'd want to see some kind of continuous improvements, and it does seem like as of late, the software updates that Apple releases are becoming more and more meaningful. And when I think about these software updates, I'm thinking about things like, the additional features being added to complement the physical changes of both the dynamic island and the action button, all the way down to the updates that reimagine how we use these devices in our day-to-day lives. A good example I like to use for this is how we can now use our iPhones as a key that's stored in our Apple wallets to unlock doors or even start your car. When you sit back and think about all the updates throughout any given year, you might notice that they tend to come in a form of a slow drip leak that slowly introduces new features and change the way things look over time. Whereas when you compare today's OS to some of the operating systems of the past, you kind of notice this more profound, exponential change as if someone left the faucet on overnight. And I expect this trend to continue. There's many rumors floating around that we could see all operating systems from Mac to iPad OS get a uniform look that resembles something that we see in the Vision Pro. As mentioned previously, there's a little more than what meets the eye. For quite a while now, the amount of innovation that's taken place has noticeably shrunk. Long are the days of being first to market. And what I mean by that is that the approach that we've been seeing lately is to take, another established idea and perfect it.
The difference is we don't offer stripped down, lousy products. We just can't ship junk.
Making it their own before releasing it to the masses versus being a true innovator in a space. Now, I'm not saying that there's none of this taking place. We still get glimpses of this shine through with things like the Vision Pro. They took aspects from products like Quest and improved upon them while adding some of their own features. And I see this as a good thing for all the different companies in a particular product space. With the kind of following that Apple has built and the respect that they've earned in the industry, if Apple truly cares enough to put effort and invest into a particular category, I imagine that it'll encourage other companies to do the same, which in my book is a win-win for consumers. But there are a few other potential drawbacks that exist in the ecosystem today. I'm sure the majority of you have probably heard of the pricing ladder that Apple has become notorious for. And some of the big tech tubers like MKBHD do a great job breaking this down. But basically what this strategy does is slowly walk you up the ladder from a baseline product that you may, just wish had more storage. Then when you elect for more storage, it now has the same price as the next model up that, might have slightly better specs or a better design. And then the cycle keeps on repeating itself until you're all the way at the tippy top checking out with, their most top of the line pro model product, spending hundreds if not thousands more than what you initially intended. You can see how some might consider this strategy to be a little bit shady at most and concerning at least. But what lies at the heart of this problem is the astronomical tax that Apple places on SSD storage. $1,200 for 4 terabytes is a little bit outrageous if you ask me, especially when you consider the fact that you can find the same amount of storage elsewhere at a fraction of the cost. And since we're on the subject of taxing, let's talk about the Apple tax. What is the Apple tax? Among app developers, the Apple tax also refers to the hefty 30% commission that Apple charges on revenue generated by apps and in-app purchases. This is double of what some of the competitors charge and has been at the center of some pretty nasty lawsuits as of late. The whole idea of trying to maintain control and having such strict standards is ensuring that quality is unparalleled and ensures the products and services they offer delivered on what was promised. And I anticipate that this is going to be the case for the foreseeable future. A good example of this one is with the Apple Smart Home platform. If you've ever been into Best Buy or Home Depot, next time you're there, stop by the smart home section where you can see all their smart home products on display, and pay attention to how many of them work with Amazon and Google versus the ones that also include Apple Home. You might be shocked to see how many of them don't work natively with Apple. And as far as reasoning, their ecosystem has stricter security and privacy requirements compared to the other platforms, as well as requiring manufacturers to adhere to specific hardware and software standards to maintain a seamless experience. So what's next? What does Apple have on the roadmap for the future? Well, for one, we know that they're no longer going down the road of trying to produce a fully automated car. The Apple Car project was canceled back in February of this year. It seems that their approach in the auto sector going forward is to try to push their technology to be a centerpiece in the vehicles of the already established auto manufacturers versus trying to compete with them, especially with the announcement and graphics that we got when they announced that next-gen CarPlay is launching later this year. And this will be even more immersive and will integrate with your vehicle speedometer and other instrument clusters, as well as give you native access to your climate controls. Apple has also reported that drivers will be able to choose between several different gauge cluster designs and layouts, including brand-specific options. While it would have been pretty dope to have a fully autonomous Apple Car, all of that effort haven't gone to waste. The majority of the employees that were working on the car project have now shifted their efforts to various AI applications, which is a relatively new development for Apple, as they previously haven't given this avenue much press and would often even go out of their way to avoid mentioning artificial intelligence during their keynotes. So what do we know right now? Well, for one, we know that pressure has been building behind closed doors to chase and compete with companies like OpenAI and Google. We also know that they've been in talks on a potential partnership with Google to use their Gemini engine for some of their generative AI while, buying some time to develop their own on-device machine learning that could potentially be shipping with the iPhone later this year. And of course, a lot of this is kind of speculation at this point in terms of when and how this will look, but one thing is for certain. Apple has heavily ramped up its development of this technology and has made it one of their top priorities. Another notable aspect worth mentioning is the emphasis the company is placing on its part manufacturing and design processes and trying to bring all of that in-house. What I mean by that is building out all the components for their own devices instead of relying on other companies for off-the-shelf parts. For example, Apple has plans, to ditch Broadcom reportedly, making their, all-in-one cellular, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth chip that we could see as early as next year. And another example that, we've already seen is in the Mac lineup, where over the last couple of years has transitioned over from, Intel-based processors to Apple Silicon with the introduction of the M-series chip. And with the importance we see, being placed on supply chain optimization, I'd be shocked if we didn't see more of this down the road. As someone who operates within the ecosystem on a daily basis, I'd have to say that I'm happy with the direction and the way things seem to be going. And yes, of course, there are things that I wish were different, but overall, I'm excited about the future. And one of the biggest pieces of evidence that I can point to is the fact that Apple appears to be using their large amount of money they have saved up to invest in the development cost of their devices, that us, the end users, will hopefully be able to reap the rewards of further down the line. So that's my take on the state of the Apple ecosystem. What are some things that I didn't mention that you think are an important piece to the story? Or maybe some things that I did talk about that are a non-issue? Again, this is going to be the first video in a series I plan on doing titled Apple Vision, where I'll try to go in depth on various topics related to the company. If you like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. I appreciate you guys sticking around to the end, and I'll see you next time.